I'm aware that, especially recently, you know, a lot of stuff opening up again, restrictions are lifting, other commitments are maybe taking over again, you know, you maybe back into work, back into the office, whatever it might be, you know, so we've still got, luckily we can still be pretty much as flexible as possible, and so you guys can just jump on and access this whenever you want. So yeah, we're going to be up and on the channel. So for those of you that haven't done a Media Savvy course before, I'm Rob, and this is Daniel. Daniel's jumped on, going to be giving us a hand this morning. Yeah. So the plan for today, we're going to be looking at, or the course that we're doing is Understanding My Fitness, which I think is a really good intro, especially if you're new to a lot of the stuff to do with health and fitness, and especially like the nutritional side of things. Because mate, you'll be able to back us up on this one. There's so much information out there, isn't there? You know, like
So
it's hard to
crazy,
know
yeah.
where to even start sometimes. You know,
Definitely.
especially as of course social media is only getting bigger and bigger every year, and now you can have somebody who's never done a qualification in their life, or PT a day in their life, or ran a class in their life, on social media, giving people professional advice. How do you
Yeah,
do this? How do you do
yeah.
that? I eat like this. This is how I diet. And you know what? Like, fair play to a lot of people out there that are trying to help other people and motivate other people and inspire other people. That's absolutely awesome. That is what we should be trying to do. But it can be a little bit that can be a little bit misleading, or sometimes it's just a little bit difficult to figure out what's right for yourself, you know, because
Yeah.
what is right for one person isn't going to be right for everybody else as well. It's kind of like, pretty extreme example, but like I've had lads my size in the gym saying like, oh, I'm doing Arnold Schwarzenegger's training plan this month, and I'm trying to eat like him. And I'm like, he's got about 8 stone on you, like, and he's training for a professional bodybuilding competition. That style of training and that lifestyle is probably not going to work for yourself, you know. So that's where I've always started to sort of come back around to the start again and think to myself, right, what does fitness mean to you? You know, because that is going to be a different answer for absolutely everybody. You know, for some people, fitness is being able to just lace up your trainers on a weekend, go out for a run, however far you want to go. You know, it's being able to go down and have a game of five-a-side, and you know, maybe not get absolutely sort of laughed off the pitch afterwards because it's been a couple of years since you played. You know, or you know, it might be you'd rather be out there, just doing a little bit of walking or a little bit of rambling or something like that. You know,
Exactly,
just
yeah.
being able to take in the countryside, go along with the family on days out, that sort of thing. Or even, do you know what? I've had clients over the years that have said, look, I just want to be able to play with the grandkids when they come round and not feel like I'm struggling to keep up. Do you know what I mean? Or like
Yeah.
every 10 minutes, like, oh, someone tag us out. I need a break from there. I need a break. And someone else can jump in and babysit for a little bit. So yeah, what fitness means is, and rightly, it should be different to everybody, you know. So we're just going to have a little bit of a look at that this morning and start to look at maybe why certain people, certain individuals, might be more suited towards different activities. You know, it's sort of like, I've always been decent at sort of endurance sports and activities, you know, long distance running. I'm reasonably quick over sort of short distance and stuff like that as well. um I'm not going to have such a good time if I go and turn up at a sumo dojo. Do you know what I mean? So there is stuff that I'm more naturally suited towards, and stuff that not so much. So, um, proper disclaimer, you know, your abilities and stuff like that doesn't dictate what you can and can't do. I'm just going to put that out there now. There is nothing that says just because you're not good at something doesn't mean you can't do it and can't enjoy it and shouldn't do it. You
True.
know, absolutely not. What we're just looking at it through the lens of, okay, where if we're starting off on this new fitness journey, as a lot of you may be, certainly as we're coming out of lockdown, restrictions are lifting and stuff like that, you think right now is a really good time. um how do you go through and like I say, sort of sift out what might be sustainable for yourself? Because we talk about that quite a lot at Media Savvy, and if you've done any of the other courses, you'll have come across that before, this idea of just being consistent. And like, if I was to give you, I can give you the best diet in the world to follow and the best training plan in the world to follow. If you can't stick to it for whatever reason for more than a week or 2 weeks, it hasn't done its job. It's not right for you, you know. So we really need to make sure that you're setting yourself up something that can be sustained, really. And I do find, and from experience being like a PT in gyms across the years, running fitness classes, stuff like that, I find that if people find that they're naturally more able to cope and manage something, they're much more likely to enjoy it. If that
True.
makes sense, do you know what I mean?
No, it does, yeah.
Nobody really wants to turn up and fail, especially on their first time, feeling like they're sticking out like a sore thumb. That's kind of what we're trying to avoid. You know, we don't have to be doing stuff that your body type says that you're more suited to and stuff like that. Not at all, but it is just a case of finding. And if you've tried fitness before and struggled to stick at it consistently, this course might give you a little bit of an idea why. And not just that, but we might be able to then look in a different direction, shine a light somewhere else, and say, well, why don't we try this? You know, these are barriers that are getting in the way, and if we try this, that removes X amount of those barriers. You know, so I do feel as though it's you know, if you've never seen me and Daniel be on together, we absolutely love a quote. And one of my favourite ones is of course the old if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And it's exactly the same with your training. If you say, right, I'm going to start exercising and getting fitter and be more active, like, yeah, okay, excellent, really, really good. That's great to have that goal. What are you going to do to achieve that though? You know, what does that look like? Is that walking? Is that sort of doing more around the house? Because again, you know, when it comes to exercise and movement, I think we always think about have I frozen your end, buddy? I've frozen my end.
Yeah, you have, mate. Yeah, sorry, I just wrote
Yeah.
notes there, but
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Yeah. No worries. As long as the audio's
no, no, you're
working,
back, you're back, you're back, you're back.
yeah. Sweet. Cool. Nice one, buddy. Nice one.
Just miniature freeze.
Yeah, mini freeze. Yeah, yeah, cool. So, yeah, so that's what we're going to be looking at this morning anyway, and we're going to be having a little bit of a look through. So to start us off, actually, buddy, if you can just roll the first slide,
Yeah.
we've got a fitness and wellness word search that we're going to do. Now, depending on how you work best, I'm aware that of course you can't be getting a permanent marker and drawing on the screen, and I definitely wouldn't advise that either. So what we could do, like I say, just have a little bit of a sift through, pick out which of those words at the bottom you can find, and maybe as you're going through and looking for words that you are trying to find, maybe just sort of be aware of the words that we're looking for. Have you come across them before? Is it stuff that is it a word that you're familiar with? You know, strength, flexibility, balance. Could you define them? Could you explain them to somebody else? And some of them you might not have come across before, you know, and that'll give you a little bit of an idea where we're going to start this morning and just looking into these different aspects of fitness. I've just seen we've got Gary in the chat as well. Morning, guys. Glad you've got in, buddy. Managed to get up this morning. I know he's been. He was saying to us the other day, he's been a bit of a rough week for sleep. So the old getting up on the morning's a little bit tough. But hey, do you know what, buddy? We all have days like that. We all have days like that, man. We really do.
Definitely,
and do you know what? When we're at the back end of May and you wake up and it's grey and miserable like it is over here today, it certainly doesn't help, does it? I mean, I don't know about you, but if the sun's up, I'm just like up and out of bed. What can I be doing? Where can I put myself?
Yeah, man.
Miserable grey days, it's less so. It's more like, where's the kettle?
There's some biological stuff behind that as well, definitely. It's not just like a feeling. I think it's like there's something to do with like us always rising with the sun and going down with the sun. So I think there's actually like a biological element there as well. There's something in your body called, I can't remember what it's called, like cardian rhythm or something like that, and your body's got a biological kind of clock, and basically like bro science 101 here, but like basically from my understanding, your body has this kind of biological clock. So we're like, through years of conditioning, we're used to getting up and going down with the sun. So when it's like, you know, obviously the weather's like kind of miserable like that, it makes you feel kind of sleepy, and you know, you don't want to get up.
Definitely, yeah. That's a really good point. And I remember reading, and again, it's not something I've ever tried, but apparently, if you do struggle, if you're struggling with sleeping and your natural sleeping patterns, if you get up and watch the sunrise, I think 2 or 3 days in a row,
Yeah,
it's meant to reset that natural rhythm or help realign that natural rhythm that you're on about. It might just be partially because you're absolutely knackered because you've been up early to see the sunrise, but at the same time, I do think there is probably something biological going on there, and like you say, just looking at that more natural sort of rhythm we've had for millennia, really.
Okay, so I did a little Google there, dude, and it
Okay.
says circadian rhythm Our circadian cycle is a natural internal process that regulates the sleep-wake cycle and roughly repeats every 24 hours. It can refer to any process that originates within an organism, so that could be like human as well, in response to the environment. And then I've got a little picture, and it's just saying that I don't know if I can like maybe get that up on stream or if it'll even be worth it, but basically it's kind of just going on. It's just like this kind of clock kind of showing us the sleep process. So that's pretty good. If I could maybe get.
It's pretty cool. If you can manage, dude, yeah.
So it's just and it's okay. I'll actually try and get this on stream. Sorry, just bear with me for 1 second, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't also like I like this is from a random website as well, so I can't justify the validity of this. Just as a disclaimer, but like this is just from what I saw.
Yeah, that is definitely a term I've come across before. Yeah, just while Daniel's on that, it's probably worth mentioning actually, just while we're on about sleep quality and what a big impact it can play in your health and fitness. We actually cover sleep and sleeping habits and stuff like that on our pre-employability and well-being course as well, and we actually get like a lot more time to actually dig into the ways that sleep can affect a lot of the processes that go on in your body and really contribute towards mental health as well as physical. That is probably, it's where I've started with a lot of clients over the years, actually, in the gym. When they'll come in and I'm like, okay, we've got your training down, we've got you exercising more, I've got a rough idea what's going on with your diet. Like, now I need to find out what's going on with your sleep. That would probably be like the next place I would go after there, because it is absolutely vital, you know, in the course daily functions and chasing targets and hitting goals and stuff like that. You've got to make sure we're getting our sleep.
So you could probably, validate or refute any of the claims in this, dude. But I don't know if you can see on the stream, if you've got the stream up, but it should be up there, and it kind of says, so we start from midnight, and then at 2 a.m. we've got deepest sleep, 4 a.m. we've got lowest body temperature, 6 a.m. sharpest blood pressure rise, 7:30 melatonin secretion stops, 10 highest alertness, noon, and then the best coordination at 2:30, fastest reaction time 3:30, greatest cardiovascular efficiency and muscle strength. It's strength spelt wrong, so that doesn't fill me with hope. But so yeah, anyway, that's just roughly what I was saying, and I don't know if you kind of agree with that, Rob, or you think that's roughly accurate, or if it's a little bit off, maybe. But I
think that probably a lot of the major points on there, in terms of sort of like melatonin cycle and stuff like that's probably bang on.
Yeah.
I imagine that stuff like fastest reaction time and stuff like that would probably be a little bit more specific to the individual. Yeah, definitely, and especially, yes, straight away, as soon as somebody's on a night shift or something like that, this obviously to go straight out the window. That probably lines up with, because that's something I've had people ask over the years as well. Like, if I'm on a night shift, do I still eat breakfast time for everybody else, or do I eat breakfast when like I'm getting up at like 11 o'clock at night before I go into work and stuff like that? And I always just advise people, treat your wake up time as the start of your day, no matter what time that is. That's advice that I've always given, because your 24 hours kind of starts from there, really, doesn't it? Totally. So yeah, don't be worrying about, it's breakfast time, but I'm supposed to be kind of like home and asleep because I've been working all night. I would say like breakfast when you get up before you go to work still, and then, like I say, just do it as if you want a day shift. Really, it's just going to be a little bit darker. That would always be my advice anyway. But yeah, definitely, if you did want to check out any of the any more like the stuff to do with sleeping and good sleeping habits and stuff like that, definitely check out the pre-employability and wellness course that we do, because of course today we're focusing more on the physical aspect of fitness and the different aspects of physical fitness, I guess, because as you guys are looking at on the screen there, and we're going to move on to in just a second, these are all kind of different components of fitness that can be isolated to an extent, and developed individually. You can do specific training to work on your strength, whereas training to work on your speed or your coordination would look totally different, you know. So this is where it boils down to choosing what aspects of fitness are most important to yourself. You know, if muscular strength isn't that important to you, in that, you know, you've got no intention of going out there and trying to pull lorries and passenger jets and stuff like that, you know, like you see in the old in the strongman, like doing the Atlas stones and stuff like that. That takes a really, really specific style of training that I have seen people get dragged into just through lack of clarity what they could be doing otherwise. You know, they've joined the gym, they have joined to get a little bit fitter, they like to run, they want to maybe tone up a little bit, drop a little bit of body fat, and they join the gym and they sort of get interested in somebody doing powerlifting, and they just start training like that, and their original goals go out the window because they're not really doing anything to help them develop their cardiovascular fitness. It's all muscular strength sort of training. So you could get to the end of 12 weeks training like that and be much, much stronger, but then be really disappointed that you haven't hit the goals that were important to you in the first place. You know, so that's where it's important to, like I say, sort of pick out maybe even just one or two of these components of fitness that are important to you, and really sort of work on them one at a time. You know, for example, if someone came to me as a client and said, "Look, I want to build lean muscle, but at the same time, I want to drop body fat at the same time," my advice would be, "Okay, well, we're going to do one of those at a time. Yeah, we're going to do one and then the other." And rather than doing 12 weeks of sort of wishy-washy, sort of trying to sit on the fence and balance the seesaw, sort of job, we're going to do 6 weeks really, really focused and nailing one of those aspects down, and then we'll do 6 weeks of the other. You know, the old command and conquer, divide and conquer sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
and just really Command and Conquer was a game that was and a good game as well. But yeah, the old divide and conquer, just pick one, focus on that, and then you can really, really focus everything to that: your diet, your training, your sleep, and all of that sort of thing, you know. But yeah, I know that you've done sort of like a lot of training over the years. I know that you've kind of been almost I don't know how deliberate it was, but I know you've ended up almost doing sort of strength training and that sort of stuff. And you know, I know you've said before that you kind of potentially ended up doing a lot of sort of not maybe lasting damage, but certainly it was taking more out of you at the time than you needed it to be to hit your goals. And
It's
you know,
yeah, like
yeah,
yeah,
go
no,
on, bud.
totally, mate. So like basically, um, yeah, I used to do a powerlifting program because it's like I wanted to. I got really obsessed with trying to bulk up, and I wanted to like because I like I was always naturally very skinny, and I thought that I was eating, I was doing like a dirty bulk, so I was taking on like so many calories, and then I was also like trying to power lift just to get as much strength as possible to then build up on a frame after that, lifting more weights, and kind of forcing more muscle growth eventually, and then but just overdoing it, and kind of being new to the gym, and always in like doing things which like not giving my muscles enough time to recover, but also doing things like negative reps, which it puts so much pressure on the muscles. And for negative reps, for people who don't know what it is, it's when maybe if you're doing a bench and you can't actually lift the weight, but you kind of take on the load, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
assisted. Like that does so much damage. So I'd have people spotting me, and then I'd carry like a weight that's too heavy for me, just to try and get used to that weight, and then rack it, and then have people help me spot it to rack it. But stuff like that's it maybe it probably can work for some people, but it can also be like pretty intense. And then also like
Mhm.
um yeah, just as well, just don't get like caught up in like trying to put. You don't have to put more weight on the bar every week that you go in, and that was something that I thought, and yeah, I ended up just doing a bit of damage from shoulder damage in particular, from just overhead press, trying to do that too heavy, and
Mhm.
because overhead press, I feel like if you do bench right, if it's to failure, it feels this is a little bit more bro science, but like it's so obvious when you're to failure on bench because you just physically can't do it anymore. But I feel like you can kind of push through your legs and your hips a bit on military press, which
Mhm.
on weight above what your shoulders can actually lift. So I would kind of just like thrust, like it's actually a different type of lift where you push your legs up as well, and it's like a military press, but
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
push through with your legs. And I would kind of like try and just do anything to get it up, and I just ended up damaging my shoulder, and I've had lasting damage for years now. And it keeps
Yeah.
going away.
Yeah.
I rehabilitate it to the point where it's strong, or I'll rehabilitate some of my accessory muscles, which will kind of like strengthen up my core, and then it'll help like so I won't feel that pain anymore, and then I'll be able to lift. But then I always end up trying to lift too heavy and injuring it again. But I wanted to briefly
Yeah.
show you, dude. I've got because I know that we're talking about resistance bands, so I've got some resistance bands online, and just because I haven't been quite ready to go back to the gym, recover and everything just yet. So I've been starting to do some resistance
Nice,
bands
mate.
workouts,
Nice.
and
Yeah.
these are absolutely awesome, man. And in terms of like rehabbing an injury, these we talked about fur bands and stuff. These are unbelievable, man. I feel like I can get a good workout in with these, and I don't overexert myself. And there's so many amazing exercises you can do. One of my favorite ones is wrapping this behind my back and then putting it underneath my arms and doing press ups with it. And then like that's
Yes. Yeah. A little bit more
unbelievable.
resistance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So yeah.
Yeah. Just before we move on, buddy, while you've got them out, a good one if you're struggling with your shoulders. I'm trying to think how I can show this one over a camera. So sort of go both palms down over and hold sort of either end of the resistance band,
Yeah.
and then with so palms down. So you want to be palm like overhand grip, yeah, and then sort of come up and over your head and only come up as wide as you need to, but then come as far over and then stretch the band as well. There you go, go as far as you can. Yeah, there you go. Oh, yeah, there you go. You don't have to force anything. It's not like a lat movement where you need to engage your lats. Just trying to bring it over the top and get that stretch.
Sure.
And the more you do that, like I would do that before I did any sort of pressing exercises, just overwarm the shoulder joint up. But yeah, you'll soon realize how tight them shoulders are. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Oh, that's so good.
And
yeah,
then the aim is as you do that, your hands should come less far apart, if that makes sense.
Right,
so you should be able to come over without pulling the band quite as much. Because obviously the tighter your shoulders are, the more you come over, the more they're going to want to fly out to the side. But yeah, there you go. If you've got any resistance bands at home, give that one a go, guys. Guys, I know you've got some kicking about. Definitely try that one. And again, guys, if you're interested in learning more about some of the fitness kit that we can actually use, especially at home or as we're going back into gyms and stuff like that, as things open up again, by all means, check out the level 1 and level 2 courses as well that we do, because they do give a really, really good deep look into how we not only use these bits of kit, but how we use them safely as well, which is of course really important. But yeah, buddy, give that one a go a couple of times a week and see how them shoulders are feeling.
I will do.
Right, guys. So let's start having a look through some of these what we call components of fitness, yeah, or we could say aspects of fitness as well. So we'll just break them down a little bit as we're going through. In fact, mate, if you can just go to the next slide, please, buddy. We've got the answer. We've got like an answer sheet. So if you've had a go at picking any out actually on the crossword, by all means, just take a bit of time to just double check your answers there as we're going through. And we'll just take a bit of time and work through each of the answers one at a time. So for strength, that was something that me and Daniel were just talking about there. And it's really, really easy to confuse the idea of I'd like to get a little bit stronger with I need to be doing strength training.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing a little bit of resistance training and you're picking up a weight for even 12, 15 reps, 20 reps, it's not strictly strength training because it's not a really, really heavy old weight that you're picking up very little times, which is more like your typical strength training. You're still going to develop a little bit of natural strength. So I've come across that before where I've had particularly women would say like, oh, I just want to work on my strength a little bit. So I'm doing strength training. Like you don't need to be doing a bench press for like 3 reps, 5 reps, as heavy as possible to get a little bit more strength in your upper body. You could do 12, 15, like I say, 20 reps, and your body is still going to adapt. It's just not optimized for gaining strength as fast as possible, which is what some of them heavier lifts do. And that's kind of similar to what you were just on about, buddy. And it's also very similar to how I started training as well. I joined the gym unqualified as a PT or anything like that. I just started going down with my mate, and he was doing a program, so I just joined the program that he was doing. And the idea was hypertrophy.
Mm-hmm.
The idea was hypertrophy, and the program we were doing, 1 week out of 3 or every week had pretty much 5 sets of 5. So I was ending up doing a lot of really strictly strength training.
Yeah, that's what.
And I was getting stronger, and I was getting stronger. But at the same time, I was training for strength there, whereas really I wanted to put a little bit of size on. So I'd have been better off training for hypertrophy, which is something totally different. If that's a term you've never come across, guys, hypertrophy is just the idea of growth and muscular growth. So there's two, and it actually blew my mind when I went and got qualified. There's 2 different types of training that's going to get you for strength training, that'll get you as strong as possible, as quick as possible, and hypertrophy, which will help your muscles grow as much as possible, as soon as possible, And yeah, you can get a blend of both, but that's where I was just sort of talking about. If you pick one, you can really focus on one before you move on to the other a little bit later on.
I think if you're like a solid ectomorph as well, and like I am, like if you're doing a lot of if you're doing a lot of powerlifting, I feel like, I don't know the science behind that at all, but I feel like because you've got a narrow chest, maybe, and I feel like maybe it puts a bit more pressure on your bones than if you were a kind of meso or like an endo, I think, So I think powerlifting, or at least just from my own experience, that's trying to do all those lifts and always trying to lift heavy. I think that's what kind of put a bit more pressure on my joints and my muscles, and then caused the injuries. So I don't know.
Yeah. Not to mention, make sure you're getting plenty of recovery. Recovery's a massive one, especially when you're working that hard. And of course, something that I'm sure every ectomorph gets tempted into at some point is the dirty bulk. So the calories may well have been going in and feeding the energy, but the recovery might not have been there.
Bro, I gotta say, dude, like,
in terms of the nutrients.
Totally. Yeah. Well, the thing is, mate, right? I swear to God, dude, this is so insane, because I used to eat over, 3,000 plus calories a day easy, like maybe 4,000 some days, maybe more than that even. But like, because I would eat, I'd have the weight gainer, I'd have optimum nutrition, make it weight gainer 750 calories. It's a jug. You have to blend it. You can't. It's not like you can't with a shake. You have to put it in the blender and literally blend it. It's like drinking concrete. I used to drink that.
It was
instant noodles, pizzas, just to put on a bit of weight. And the mental thing is, I was so desperate at that time. But if I just waited, the thing is, I'm right.
Yeah.
So I'm in my late 20s now, and basically, I can gain weight by looking at stuff now, and it's like that's what it is. It's just your metabolism naturally slows down, and I never thought that would happen, but now I'm fatter than I've ever been in my whole life, and it literally, and I eat the same way that I used to, and it's you get older and your metabolism slows down. So if I could say anything to my early self, I would just say, just enjoy being skinny while you can, because that's actually a gift and not a curse. And
yeah. Size will come whether you like it or not. Size will come.
Exactly.
Certainly if we're not nailing that diet down. But of course that's exactly why the nutritional side is just as important. And again, if that's something that you feel as though you'd like to learn a little bit more about the nutritional side, definitely check out a couple of the other health and wellbeing courses that we do, because you guys know by now how important food is when it ties into your training, and especially your physique and stuff like that. That old saying, abs are made in the kitchen, not the gym. But again, just in terms of sort of coming back to what I just mentioned to Daniel there, in terms of recovery, when you're training, when you're exercising, when you're putting your body through a lot, we need those good foods as well coming in to actually help your body recover and bounce back from those as well. Yeah. So, if you do want to look into the nutritional side a little bit more, definitely check those out. Or even if it's just an odd question, by all means, just drop me an email. I'm guessing my email will be in fact, I'll just put it in the chat now, actually. If you do have any questions that you do want to ask, I'll just stick my email in there. Boom. There you go. Just if you do have any questions to do with, I'm interested in this, what course would you point me towards, and that sort of thing. And we'll hopefully be able to help out there. Okay then, buddy. So just blasting through a load of these. So we've got, of course, flexibility is, of course, sort of like your range of motion at a joint, thinking about, of course, like doing the splits, stuff like that. And then you come down to the other end of the scale where, to a certain extent, even trying to bend down and tie your shoelaces in some people, depending on how tight your back is, your hamstring. I've had people that have come to me that have said, I want to get fit, I want to lose weight. And the first thing I've said to them is, we need to work on your mobility and your flexibility. Like some of the bigger, more beneficial weight loss exercises, your body isn't capable of doing right now because you can't move through that range that I needed to. So we actually needed to do flexibility work first. And again, depending on what your idea of fitness is, flexibility might be a really big part of that. And, like I say, being able to get your shoes on, being able to put your socks on first thing on the morning, for some people, that is their goal. That is why they want to keep fit. And it's longevity, isn't it? Keep things working for longer. Which is as good a reason to train as any, if you ask me. Of course, balance is probably something that you've come across before, and of course, sort of maintaining your center of gravity over your over your mass, really. Balance, like I say, probably something that you have come across before. Heart rate, if you haven't come across it before, it is literally just how many beats your heart is doing per minute. That is what we'll be checking when we're doing the old fingers on your pulse, either on your wrist or on your neck, that sort of thing. We're checking your heart rate, and that is something we can use to look at, how tough are we finding this exercise? How much is my heart rate come up? Speed is another one. So, of course, when I mention speed, the first sort of thing I think about is the likes of Usain Bolt across shorter distances, and then probably a little bit more outside the box, Mo Farah as well, of course, across bigger distances. It is pretty much just the distance done in the time that you've done it in. And speed is, again, a reason that a lot of people will train, be it I want to get faster at running, I want to knock time off of this, I want to be able to, when I'm playing five-a-side, I want to be quicker so I can get, give my team an advantage, get to the loose ball a little bit quicker, whatever that might be. And of course, like I say, speed's a reason that a lot of people do train. Coordination is a little bit more sort of out there. It's a little bit more outside the box, but it is something that we can develop. It's pretty much sort of matching up motor tasks, isn't it, really? So it's a case of thinking, I can see something with my eyes. I'm going to try and put my hand on that. I can put my hand on that, pretty effectively. And of course, that extends to even things like darts. I know it's not typically a sport, but it's a good example of coordination of, okay, I want the dart to go there. It's really, really impressive hand-eye coordination, stuff like that. Yeah. And again, when it comes to stuff like, especially combat sports, can I move my feet and move my hands at the same time and think about breathing? Can I, do I have the coordination to maybe make this step to the left, duck, come underneath, maybe take a step back, throwing them combos together? That all comes down to coordination. I've actually seen a boxing coach develop pro boxers by even little things like throwing a tennis ball at them and saying, okay, punch that back to us, because of course it's a smaller area, it's a smaller target to hit, so your coordination needs to be that much better. It'll actually help reaction time as well as coordination. Yeah, that can be really helpful. So again, what is your goal? If you're training to be faster across 100 meters, you don't need to be worrying about your coordination too much. You don't need to be doing that sort of training. You don't need to be on the pads. If you're training for coordination, maybe it's explosive power, that might be something that you do want to look at. So again, what your idea of fitness is really going to dictate and determine the way that you should be training, especially to maximize your results, which a lot of us should be trying to do, maybe save yourself a little bit of time. I would rather go to the gym 3 days a week instead of 5 if I can get in what I need to get in, save myself a little bit of time. You might feel the same. That might be the difference in 2 nights a week. You can go and pick the bairn up from school, yeah, or whatever, saving yourself a little bit of time. Time's priceless. It's the one resource that we can't get back, really, totally, at the end of the day. So yeah, if you can save yourself a little bit of time and be training with focus, you can actually cut down on the amount of time you need to spend in the gym every week, which potentially helps eliminate a massive barrier to exercise in the first place, Go on,
Rob,
bud. No, shoot, man.
I was just saying, yeah, I watched the Unreal Tyson Fury video where he said like because he was asking him about Ruiz Jr. and if you know obviously Ruiz Jr. the guy who beat Joshua, quite a fat guy,
Mhm.
bit of a dumpling, and he lost a lot of weight and he's looking really slim and that's great for him, right? But then you know they ask about so the interview asked Fury like what do you think of him now, and he says he needs to gain some weight. He says he needs to gain about 10 pounds. He's like you know he says this is the heavyweight division. He says I'm
Mhm.
275 pounds. He was like you know, and if you look at Fury when he came back the first fight against Wilder, the coach that he was with had Tyson Fury way too slim. In the second fight, when Fury came in a bit heavier, you know, a healthy weight for him, he just absolutely annihilated Wilder. And he was saying, like, listen, he said, I'm a fat guy. He says, it doesn't matter. He says, it's got nothing to do with it. I'm best at this weight. I'm healthy at this weight. He says, it's not a bodybuilding competition. It doesn't matter
That's
what you look like. If you're a pit
it.
bull, you're a pit bull. So that's what he
Yeah,
said, yeah. So,
that's a really good quote, actually.
yeah,
Yeah, I like that. I like that, and that's something that we're going to kind of get into in a minute. And the idea of, what, to a certain extent, we've all got our own certain body type, or we're a blend of certain different types of, or different body types, and that can really help inform how we train, and I guess to an extent help inform how we eat as well, which is something that we'll dive into in just a sec. But that is a really good point. It is. Again, he trains for purpose, doesn't he? He
exactly.
trains for function. He trains to do what he wants to do really well. That has allowed him to make a career out of that, and at times be the best in the world within
Yeah,
his
man.
division.
Yeah, he
You know,
moves. He moves like a welterweight. You know, he might
he
have a little
does.
bit
Yeah, yeah,
of a
yeah.
gut, but he moves like a welterweight, and it's not. That's it. It's
Good feet
you
for a
know.
big man.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
big man. Yeah,
Like Peter Crouch, good feet for a big man.
that's it. Yeah,
Okay, so where were we? Where were we? So we've done coordination, agility. Is very much sort of changing direction really quickly and being able to maintain your balance. So you think like maybe it's American football where it needs to look like you're going to be in one place, where you sell the fake, and then you're going to maybe like feint the other way. And obviously make sure you're not getting clattered by the big old guy that's trying to run into you as hard as possible. That's always going to work to your advantage. When it comes to agility, again, it might be certain things like if you ever did the bleep test, get to one end of the hall, you've got to turn and go back the other direction and accelerate in the process. That requires quite a lot of agility as well. So yeah, that is a totally different aspect to speed. Speed is potentially more of the overall time it takes you to do that distance. The agility is more to do with how well you can carry off those turns, change of directions, and where you would potentially lose balance. You know, um, wellness, of course, not really a component of fitness, but of course something that we're looking at under the umbrella of sort of fitness and wellness. Just this idea of it. We don't just need to be fit and active. We need to be well.
yeah,
Also, we need to be taking care of our mental state. We need to be thinking about the actual quality of the food we're getting. We need to be making sure that we're getting good nourishment from our food as well. It's not just energy in versus energy out. In terms of weight loss and weight gain, it can be usually boiled down to energy and energy out, but we don't just want to lose weight or gain weight. We've mentioned before, you see a bodybuilder on stage in the peak of their sort of physique, in almost sort of like their prime. They have trained everything to look their best on that day. They're not healthy while they're up there. They're sort of going to be deficient in a lot of minerals and a lot of nutrients because their meals for the last 6 months has probably been a handful of protein, a handful of carbohydrates, and a handful of a veg. And that veg has probably been the same on most meals, be it broccoli, be it green beans, be it spinach, whatever it's going to be. So they need to make sure that you're getting a good, like I say, a good sort of range of these minerals and these nutrients and these vitamins as well. So wellness is important to sort of bear in mind while we're thinking about fitness, and because it's easy to get sucked into the mindset of fitness means weight loss or weight gain, depending
yeah.
on
That's
what
a
it is
good
you're
point,
trying
man.
to
That's
do.
a really good point.
And that is not what we're trying to do. I've had people in the gym come up to me and say, "Oh, Rob, I'm eating really clean for weight loss," and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're making really really good food choices in terms of minerals and quality of food. You're getting good whole foods in there. You've swapped snacks from a packet of crisps over to almonds. That's really good. At the same time, you're still eating 500 calories more a day than you need to be, so
True.
you're still gonna gain weight. At the same time, there was American scientist, I can't remember who it was now, who worked out his calorie maintenance and he ate significantly under that. So say he needed 2,000 calories a day, he ate 1,500 calories a day, but it was like in Twinkies and like corn dogs and junk pretty much. But because he was eating less than he needed, he was actually losing weight.
Yeah.
You know, so again, there is a but he felt awful for it, you know. So yeah, there is a big difference between eating for weight loss and weight gain and eating to be well and nourished and to be healthy. And it's where you put those two together where it's really easy to sort of blur the lines and figure out, well, how do these two things go together at the same time, which you'll hopefully have a better idea of by the end of today's session. So yeah, that is just worth mentioning before we look at reaction time. So reaction time might be just how quickly you can respond to a stimulus, you know, be it an athlete going off when the gun goes off on the start line, you know, in a 100-meter sprint, a tenth of a second in that push off the start line can make the difference.
Yeah.
You know, in racing, a tenth of a second is you know, it's quite a significant amount of time to make up if you've lost it. You know, it really
yeah.
It's mad. It's absolutely mad. You know, this idea of like, I've got to do that again, but try and knock a second off. You know, a second is a long time when it comes to racing. Reaction times can make a big difference. You know, at the same time, you know, when we think of maybe it's a sport like basketball, can you get to a rebound? Reaction times, it might be a goalkeeper in football. You know, the shot might take a deflection from a defender on the way past, and the goalkeeper's gone one way, and now he needs to react and come back and go the other way and get down and make the stop. You know, and that is purely reaction time. There is training specifically to that, where I've seen it before, where like a coach will stand behind the goalkeeper in the net, and they've got like pretty much a wall with just all the different contours and bumps and nasty little knobbly bits that's going to get all the bobbles in the world, and he'll just stand and throw it off this wall, and whatever bit the ball bounces off and deflects sort of from, the keeper's got to adjust to that. And you know, I thought it was such an interesting way to develop reaction time.
I think I told you as well, they've got like it's basically like a cannon, right? And they just they can adjust the cannon so it's got like a certain type of curve and stuff like that, and they'll just place it in certain places just to kind of make sure that they can cover all bits of the net and like how the ball's going to curve and stuff like that, and they can just like drill it. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely. Like they could put it on like a specific square on the net if they wanted to.
Yeah.
At that level of accuracy, yeah. It's absolutely crazy. Some of the, especially technology that we've got. Again, which is something that we get into in some of the later courses, the level 1 and the level 2. We can actually look at some of the technology that we've got sort of available to us to help us develop these components of fitness and test them as well. You know, because testing and realizing where you are as a starting point can be really informative of where you go from there. You know, so again, something to look forward to in some of the upcoming courses. If you're already enrolled, if you're not and would like to be, or if you want a little bit more information, by all means, just drop me an email. I'm more than happy to hook you up with that for sure. Okay, so cardiovascular endurance is usually a main one that people include when they say, I want to get fitter. You know, it is your body, it's your heart and your lungs' ability to get oxygen around the body to the muscles that need it. And of course, the more you use a muscle, the more oxygen it's going to go through, which is why the more we're active and the more we're using those muscles, our heart rate comes up to just keep up with that oxygen demand pretty much. That is pretty much why our heart rate raises while we're exercising. And of course, the more you do it, the more efficient your body becomes at doing it, you know. So an example that we've used before, you know, like someone who is sort of like an average person, like ourselves, our resting heart rate might be somewhere between sort of 60, maybe high end 80-ish. Someone who does a lot of cardio training and spends a lot of time developing their sort of, like I say, cardiovascular system, their resting heart rate might be 30, 40. Because it's used to working at this higher level, and it's so much more efficient to working at that level that when you're resting, it's like, well, this is a walk in the park. Do you know what I mean? I'll do this all day long. Like, I don't need to be working quite as hard to pump that blood around the body. So that is where the cardiovascular endurance comes from. It's like, how long can you maintain something for? And that cardiovascular endurance would be the biggest difference, I would say, if you were to put Mo Farah in a race against Usain Bolt.
Yeah.
you know. That cardiovascular endurance would make or break. Usain Bolt would take off, and it would essentially, because we love an analogy, it would turn into the hare versus the tortoise. Not to say that Usain Bolt's going to start napping after he's done a lap, but at the same time, sooner or later, what Usain Bolt is used to doing across 100 meters, it won't be sustained. It would slow down, and Mo Farah's superior cardiovascular endurance would take over. And you know what? It might be a long process of catching up, but sooner or later, he's going to catch up with Bolt and leave him in the dust, really, because he's just got that superior conditioning.
Exactly.
So again, cardiovascular endurance might actually be what you're referring to when you think to yourself, "Oh, I'd like to be a little bit fitter." But it's interesting to think about, does that involve any kind of muscular strength? Would you like to be stronger in any capacity? So yeah, just something worth thinking about, if that is kind of what fitness means to you, your cardiovascular endurance. We could start thinking about some of these other components now and how they fit together. Exercise heart rate is of course exactly the same as heart rate, but it is while you're active. We sort of mentioned a second ago where, of course, your heart rate's going to come up while you're exercising, and again, you can measure that and you can say to yourself, okay, just running up the stairs, my heart rate has come up 30 beats per minute. As my cardio and vascular endurance gets better, I would expect to see that come down. And again, we've got an idea where we're going, and what we're trying to assess, and even better, how we can test how our progress is going. Physical activity, of course, is something that we should all be trying to get in every week. It doesn't have to be a gym. Me and Daniel have sort of mentioned that before in other classes, because it's easy to get into this idea of fitness needs to be the gym. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. It can be, like we say, it can be sort of specific sports. It can be walking, running, all of that sort of thing. It might be going down to your local community centre and doing sort of whatever classes are on. It could be a little bit of yoga or stretching in the house, like I'm sure a lot of us have been doing over the last year. So physical activity can actually mean a lot of different things. It could even mean, running the hoover around the house. It is physical activity, and it burns calories.
Yeah.
And it is this idea of, not all activity needs to be exercise as well. You can be physically moving, like I say, going up and down the stairs day to day, dusting, standing and doing the washing up. It's all movement that's not necessarily related to exercise, but it still burns calories at the end of the day. So think about how you can almost sneak extra movement into your day if you can. Can you park at the back of the car park when you get to work and just walk that little bit further? Can you take the stairs up rather than going up in the lift? That sort of thing. That is where we can be getting a little bit more physical activity, and it doesn't need to be lacing up the trainers, sticking on the 118 headband and going for a run first thing in the morning. There's more to it than that. Physical activity is such a broad spectrum, and I think that's what kind of puts people off and alienates people a little bit, because they think, oh, the gym's not for me, I don't know where to start. And of course, it's really easy to get disheartened from there. So yeah, just bear that in mind. It doesn't have to mean just going to the gym. Muscular endurance, kind of in contrast to muscular strength. We talked about strength, and that is the ability to do something for a short amount of time at a heavy weight. It might be your 1 rep max. You might go in and try and do a deadlift or a squat as heavy as you can, but you only do 1 repetition. Muscular endurance is how well your muscles cope across a prolonged amount of time, and bar the obvious example of saying, doing 50 reps instead of 3, is going to be a massive difference, and it's going to train different aspects of your fitness. I always think about like the leg muscles of a Tour de France cyclist, because without muscular endurance to keep pumping them pedals, like, their legs are going to seize up and they're just not going to finish. Like, you think the amount of repetitions that each leg or each cyclist goes through across the Tour de France, even just in like a single sitting, if they don't have the muscular endurance there to keep that going, and be able to do that effectively, like, they're not going to be able to do what they need to do. So they could do all the cardiovascular endurance training in the world, and their body might be able to get the oxygen to the muscle, but the muscle might just like shut down.
I saw.
Yeah,
You're totally right. Yeah, it's the muscular endurance you'd need to be able to pedal for that long, for that amount of time. It'd just be insane. I saw a picture yesterday of Chris Hemsworth, and his arms.
okay.
his arms are bigger than his legs, basically. And like I was
Really?
so
Oh, no, I've
shocked,
never
man.
noticed.
Honestly, I saw him in shorts and I was like, are that his legs? I couldn't believe it. If you see Hugh Jackman, he's the same. And it's like, man, it's like
Yes.
people were saying, well, calf muscle, that's like the hardest part to train. It's like 90% genetics or something. I was thinking, yeah, but like he might be on some kind of additional supplementation, and I'm sure he could grow that muscle if he really wants to.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. If you really wanted to. And like you say, like carbs are a small portion of what's going on. You've got your hamstrings and your quads and your glutes as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So yeah, they're not quite so hard to develop. I don't know if it's just the old Hollywood, or we'll just get this shot from the waist up. We'll just get it there, and after Thor, you can't even see your legs when you've got a godlike cape blowing around your
exactly.
lower half as well. So yeah, the importance probably wasn't there, definitely. But yeah, that is something that's worth mentioning as well. You've got to be doing both. Don't skip leg day. Don't be skipping leg day. I've never noticed that about Chris Hemsworth
Dude, it
actually.
looks mental. I
When
mean,
you said when you said when you said Thor at first, I thought you meant the bodybuilder.
oh, for Beyonce, no, no, no,
Yeah,
no. He's
yeah,
got he's
yeah. I was
got
like, no,
big legs. He's got big legs.
his legs are all right.
He
Yeah,
he
yeah, yeah,
hasn't
yeah,
skipped legs.
definitely.
That's definitely true.
No,
Yeah,
no, definitely not.
no,
Definitely not.
no.
So sort of segues quite nicely into this next one of body composition, actually, because something that we're going to look at in a minute is, of course, that with somebody like Thor Bjornsson, who that is his surname, isn't it?
I
Yeah,
think it is, isn't it?
I think. I think so. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure it is. Yeah. Anyway, the Mountain from Game of Thrones, as he's probably
Yeah,
better known.
yeah.
Yeah. So his body type and his body composition, um, allows and encourages a little bit extra body fat. And we're going to get a look at another powerlifter in a second. We're going to look at Eddie Hall, who does the same sort of thing. Who, do you know what? His body composition is perfectly tuned to what he needs to do. Exactly like Daniel mentioned about Tyson Fury earlier on. His body composition lets him do what he needs to do, really, and it is designed specifically for that, so your body composition really is just the way your body is made up of fat, muscle, water, and a bone as well, skeleton in there as well, just to usually determine sort of like, it's normally aesthetic, really, isn't it? Your body composition, especially when we get down low end. If you ever heard someone saying, oh, I'm 12% body fat or whatever it might be, that's what they're referring to, their body composition.
Yeah,
Now
yeah.
you'll notice that all the athletes that we're going to look at in just a second, there is no right body composition, which is potentially one of the biggest messages I want everybody to take away from today. There is no correct way to look visually, aesthetically. There is no right and there is no wrong. Carrying a little bit more body weight, a little bit more body fat than somebody else, depending on what it is you're doing, can actually be the difference between you being the best in the world and not. Like you said, talking about Tyson Fury earlier on.
Yeah.
So that is something that we need to think about. Again, coming back to bodybuilders, when they get on stage, maybe they're 6% body fat, 8% body fat, but they're not healthy. That level of body composition at that cost of health, I don't think should really be desirable.
Of course not.
Certainly not year round. We've got to remember that these guys have this body composition at the peak for one day, really. It's one day. They might need to try and sustain it across a couple of weeks to hit different shows, but really they're trying on the day of the show to look their very best. And like we mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of other stuff that's compromised with them, and even their bodybuilders don't look like that year round. It's
No.
not sustainable. Fitness cover models that you see, someone who is on social media that's paid for a private photo shoot or whatever, and they've got some good looking pics. They have dieted and trained that way to look their best on that day, so it's interesting to remind yourself that those people don't look like that year round as well. So don't put the expectation on yourself too. Like I say,
Yeah, mate,
there is
like,
no right and wrong way to look. Definitely not.
what's your thoughts on that, Rob? Like people with, unattainable physiques, or people. Obviously, there is like natural mesomorphs, and I've got some friends who are shredded like naturally, totally, but there's a lot of those kind of fitness gurus or whatever. It's like, they could may well be on something, right? You know, they could be on some additional supplements. They've got an absolutely
Huh?
shredded physique. You know, they've got like 5% body fat, and they're saying if you follow my program, you're going to look like this as well. Well, I mean, what's your thoughts on that whole, you know, market? Because I think it kind of it's an unattainable goal, right? It's for a lot of people. So I don't know
It
what.
sets
Yeah,
it sets dangerous standards for what people think should be the norm.
yeah,
I think, you know what, like you're always going to get generational athletes and individuals that, just like you say, genetics and dedication and commitment and mindset and the psychology, sometimes it all just lines up perfectly. But at the end of the day, like we sort of mentioned at the start of the session, you following their plan that has worked for them,
yeah,
and do you know what, take it with a grain of salt, whether that is entirely responsible for them being the way they look or not. You know, their plan is probably not going to work for you, especially if you can't identify areas where it lines up with what you actually want and
yeah,
what your strengths are as well. Do you know what I mean? Like I could jump on like I say, I could jump on Arnold Schwarzenegger's bodybuilding plan and follow it for the next 10 years
yeah,
and never look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's just not going to happen, you know. And it can it's almost it's dangling the carrot, isn't it, and saying, okay, give me some of your money and you can look like this,
hmm,
you know, which is problematic, really,
yeah,
sort of within. I do understand that there's a market for it, and I do understand that if people will make a living from it, they will make a living from it.
yeah,
I feel as though the responsibility and responsibility might be quite a strict sounding term, but I feel as though the onus really is on us as individuals to remind ourselves that what we see on the screen or what we see as the end result of this program or whatever it is, you know, that's not the norm. It's not what you should strive to look like. You
hmm,
shouldn't be told that that's how you should look, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You shouldn't be told that that's how you should look. If you decide that's how you want to look for the right reasons,
yeah,
by all means, go pursue that. You know, I've got absolutely no problems with that at all. You know, got a lot of respect for people that do put the commitment and the dedication. And, you know, again, even the bodybuilders that I've worked with, I would never do it myself, but I've got a lot of respect for the dedication and the commitment that goes in. And if that's for you and you enjoy that and you get something out of it, go for it, you know. But again, don't be blindsided into thinking that just following somebody else's plan will get them to where you want to be,
yeah,
you know, or even particularly where they are, because you can guarantee that they've had a little bit of help putting that together for their own specific needs. You know, they might have
yeah,
had a PT at some point or something that's helped them put that program together, and that has accounted for that person's individuality.
yeah,
It hasn't accounted for yours. You know, that hasn't accounted for the knee operation that you had 6 months ago. It hasn't accounted for, you know, the fact that you're vegan and you don't even eat meat, or whatever it might be. You know, you don't have the time to eat 6 meals a day, or spend 3 days a week doing meal prep. You know, it's just not feasible for everybody. You know,
hmm.
so
No,
yeah, we've
exactly.
just got to, again, take it with a pinch of salt. I always think, whether there's a filter on or not, everything you see online, you've got to imagine that you're seeing through a filter, because, you know, it's media at the end of the day, isn't it? And it's got a purpose, and the purpose in the case that Daniel's on about is more often than not that to get you to part with your money, really, you know,
Hmm.
which in a lot of cases could be better spent on a gym membership, you know, a protein powder. Go get yourself some resistance band or some kit for in the house. And there's normally a lot of places you'd be better off spending that money that's going to be more sort of conducive to your goals than just trying to follow on someone else's gimmick, really, I guess, you know, and really try and get on what someone else is selling. Okay, buddy. So if you don't mind, we'll just roll on to the next slide. I've just noticed Wib's there. Wib stuck his head in the chat this morning. Morning, Wib. Nice to have you in, buddy.
One with that.
So question then, Wib. Now I've got you on the spot. What is fitness, and what does the word fitness mean to you? Because we've sort of discussed this morning. Um, Fitness is, and probably should, mean something different to everybody. You know, when you say the word fit, or when you hear the word fit, what do you think of when you say you'd like to be more fit? What does that look like? Does that mean picking up a barbell, with a load of weights on each side and pushing it above your head, kettlebell swings, medicine ball slams? Does it look like, being able to just go for a little couple of mile walk without feeling like you need to stop for a break every 10 minutes? What is fitness to you? And you guys at home as well, I'd like to start having a little bit of a think about your own idea of fitness, what it has meant to you before today, and maybe reflect on how that is starting to change now, as we're starting to open up our eyes and our mind to the fact that it's not just a case of fitness means this sort of thing. So yeah, it'd be really interesting to know your guys' thoughts on what you see as fit, because once upon a time I'd have looked at a bodybuilder on stage, Phil Heath, Jay Cutler, whoever it might be, and said, you know what, that's an Adonis, that is the peak of physical fitness, that is the peak of physical fitness. And it's not, it's maybe the peak of body composition, and it is maybe even the peak of discipline and commitment, but I wouldn't say it is the peak of physical fitness, because those guys, you go and ask them to run a mile, or something comes up, a real life situation where they need to call on certain aspects of their fitness, and they can't because they're so depleted. That's not fitness. That's certainly not my idea of fitness, being caught short and out of breath. An attainable life lesson.
Look at some
it's a really good point.
You look at some of the veterans now, mate, and I'm sure that there's a few examples of people who are still that age and they're still totally healthy. But if you look at like Dorian Yates or Ronnie Coleman, man, the amount of surgeries they've had, I mean, I do not envy that. I mean, Ronnie Coleman's in a wheelchair for most of the time now, so it's like, because of his back injuries, it's
his back is essentially one bone now, isn't it? It's just one fused, one vertebrae. Now I'm sure he's not going to have any complaints that he was the best in the world, and he's got global, international, everlasting respect. But you imagine that the amount of people that have put their body through that and have not made it to the peak. How many people have put their body through that to always finish in second place to Ronnie Coleman? I'm sure when your vertebrae start crumbling to dust, you'd start to have a couple of maybe questions, a couple of regrets.
Yeah, buddy. Lightweight. Eat it.
I'm just saying, Whip says fitness is an attainable life lesson. It sure is, because we should always be learning, we should always be adapting, we should always be adjusting our fitness regimes to our fitness goals, which should always be changing as well.
That's a good point, but
Whip makes a really, really good point as well, that it should be mentally as well as physical, and we sort of touched on this earlier on. The idea that it's not just about being physically fit, it's about having that all sort of holistic wellness, and making sure that we maintain our mental state as much as, and our mental health as much as physical health. I had a really, really good really sort of way of putting it. I think it was a TED talk I was listening to actually, and it was this idea of, do you know what, we're all quick enough to take 10-15 minutes every day to focus on our physical health. It's not always what we would think of fitness. It might be stretching, it might be yoga. Looking after your physical health is stuff as well, like, of course, brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth, get in the shower. How many of us spend 15 minutes a day doing those sort of housekeeping things on our mental health? And it's not very often. And I heard it compared to and referred to as flossing for your mind. Flossing for your mental health, which is something that, again, coming back to what Wib says, it is something that we should all be trying to do from time to time, if not every day, every other day, certainly on some kind of regular basis. Just spend a little bit of time on your mental health as well, and just think of it as, do you know what, it might be just sitting in silence and just having 10 minutes to think and process things, but that is in itself, almost like flossing for the mind. I absolutely I love that sort of analogy, so yeah, that's a really good point, Wib, and I appreciate you sharing your perspective on that, because like we say, fitness is something different to absolutely everybody. And you know, there's no right and a wrong way that you can go off and be the best in the world at something and be totally different to someone who's the best in the world at something else. You know, you might both be athletes, you know, and that's something that we're going to look into in just a sec. So of course we all have our own strengths and weaknesses that come probably sort of naturally, be it genetic, like I say, based on our genetics or our body types, and then depending on who you are, getting fit and what that looks like is going to be totally different for you as well. Which sort of coming back to the question that Daniel asked not so long ago, it depends on who you are, and what your idea of fitness is. So think about it like if you've got almost like moving parts, who you are and what your idea of fitness looks like are probably two combinations that are different to everybody else around you.
Yeah.
You know, so why would the middle section, getting from point A to point B, why would your journey need to look the same as anybody else's?
True.
So that's the way I'm thinking about it. Your start point is different and your end point is different. Why is your journey going to be the same? And it's not. You know, top and bottom of it, it's not. And like that's exactly it. If you're off doing somebody else's journey, like you're not doing your own, really. I guess.
Exactly
I guess
right.
so. That is where we need to start to really focus a little bit, and that's where what we've covered today is going to be so important, hopefully, and helping you sort of decide what's important to you and how you're going to tackle fitness. You know, especially as we do. Hopefully, touch will get some kind of normality back, and we've got a lot of stuff available to us again over the summer. Okay, buddy. So if we can just go on next slide then, please, bud. We'll have just a quick little blast through these because we've looked at some of them already this morning. I've just got a couple of different examples on there, you know. So when it comes to fitness, you might have someone who's really cardiovascularly fit. So their heart, their lungs, the blood cells is really, really good at supplying oxygen-rich blood to the working muscles. Excellent, you know, really good. Then you might have someone who has got a lot of strength, someone who's really strong, you know, that might be your power lifter or it might be your bodybuilder, you know, where they don't necessarily need to be cardiovascularly fit to do whatever they do, you know. Then you've got our body composition. Again, you know, you might look at somebody who has got the old, it might not be an athlete, it might just be a beach bod. Do you know what I mean? It might just be somebody Joe Public, and you can look and say, okay, like that person's got really, really good body composition. I bet they're quite fit. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I'm sure we've all made that assumption of someone where you see someone who looks in decent shape and you're like, oh, fair play, you know, he's probably pretty strong or can you know manage quite a lot without getting out of breath, that sort of thing, quite sort of physically active. And then there's flexibility, you know, which depending on where you are in terms of your own journey, flexibility is one of them things. If you've got a lot of it and you haven't really had to work on it, you probably don't really value it.
Yeah.
I definitely took my flexibility when I was younger for granted. You know, then played a lot of football, did a lot of fixed range of motion exercises, you know, hamstring curls where you're just moving through the same range, that sort of thing. Play a lot of five-a-side where it's quite quad dominant and it's quite heavy on your glutes and your hamstrings don't get so much work. Sooner or later, I found myself PTing with like the tightest hamstrings I'd pretty much ever seen. And I needed to spend a lot of work developing those and developing that flexibility to get back to normal. So if you're in a position where you haven't got great flexibility and, you know, you maybe need a little bit of help, or maybe it takes longer than you'd like it to get your socks and shoes on in the morning or whatever it might be, that sort of thing. Because, of course, that's flexibility as well. If you haven't got that ability, you know, you would probably value it a lot more, and that might actually be a goal. You know, that might be something that you're working towards. You might be like, you know what, I've got absolutely no intention of ever picking up a barbell and putting it on my back and doing 5 squats as heavy as I can, but I would like to have the flexibility to at least get through a squat. You know, I would like to at least have that range of motion. I'd like to at least be able to interesting one that I came across once upon a time in the gym was someone was struggling to step up onto a chair that they were using to access a higher point of the home. I think it was like the top shelf of a cupboard.
Okay.
So from a standing point, they couldn't raise their front knee enough to get their foot up onto the step or the chair. Because when they were working in the gym, step-ups that they were doing, if they were doing step-ups onto a box, the box was big. So their body was only used to really stepping up that high. So when she's in the house, gone to step up like triple that height, she just doesn't have the mobility in her hips. So again, flexibility was something that we had to work on there. And again, is something totally different. You could look at someone who, you could look at a gymnast, bending themselves in all different types of shapes, a contortionist even. And you know what? I've never looked at somebody that flexible and assumed that they're unfit. You'd be more likely to see somebody doing that sort of thing, and okay, they're obviously quite physically active, physically able, and that might be enough for you to consider them to be fit. So again, it's totally different what that word means to you. So something that we're going to dive into now. So if we can go on the next slide, please, buddy. In fact, how is fitness different for everybody? We'll go straight to the slide after, buddy, if you don't mind. So Usain Bolt is our first example. World class. He's probably a household name. I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of him. Current world record holder for I believe the 100-meter sprint. I don't know about the 200-meter sprint, but he was quick. He was quick, and he was rapid in his prime. He was really quick. I've actually picked that picture because I love the fact that he's that fast. He managed to get in a smile to the camera.
I know, it's crazy.
Cracks me up every time when I say that. When you've got everybody else absolutely chewing on to keep up with him, and he's like, "Oh, just get a little smile in for the paparazzi." Like, why not?
I know, it's an iconic picture.
It is. It really is. So Usain Bolt, somebody that you would look at, and I would say you would struggle to make the argument that he's unfit. You haven't got much substance there to base that on. So if we would consider him fit, why would we consider him fit? So we would say that, of course, he's got good muscular strength in terms of power and starting the race and pushing off that start point. Let's be honest with Usain Bolt, this race was probably over after 10 meters, and some of that comes from just the sheer power that he's able to get off the blocks with.
Yeah.
And of course we can see further down that list as well, we've got our reaction time as well, where we can see that your reaction time is going to factor into that, and again, how quick you can get off the starting point. Coordination, he's got one foot in front of the other. If you've ever seen Cool Runnings, man, heartbreak, someone goes down and takes out the whole track. One of the sprinters goes down and takes out 3 or 4 other runners. You've got to have the coordination to get your feet in the right place, big strides. You've got to, I don't know if you've actually noticed, it was something that I hadn't noticed till someone pointed it out to us. They'll use their upper body quite a lot, and they will actually develop their upper body quite a lot because the harder and faster they're punching, the legs tend to follow. Wow. So he's got that power there as well. He's got the coordination to get the arms moving fluently while his feet are going as well. In a movement that's almost choreographed. Definitely. Trial and error, and every single aspect of his movement that he does for that 10 seconds across 100 meters is so fine-tuned. You don't even realize when you're just watching it with the naked eye. But every single step and every single muscle fiber is firing on purpose. And that is exactly what he was. He was a sprinting machine. So yeah, we would consider him as really fit. He's got good cardiovascular fitness. Not as much as somebody like Mo Farah, but he's got good cardiovascular fitness that his heart can get the oxygen to where it needs to be. And I noticed there, I've put body composition on there. Because his body composition helps him do what he needs to do. If he didn't have as much muscle, he might not have as much power. If he had more body fat, he might not be as quick because he's carrying more mass over a distance. So his body composition, again, is fine-tuned to what he needs it to do. He hasn't decided, okay, so-and-so on Instagram has said that if I train like that, do you know what I mean? I can be 10% body fat. He's like, do you know what? My body composition will be whatever it needs to be to get me to be the fastest man in the world.
Yeah.
Really. So if we were to look at the next example that we've got, which is Bradley Wiggins, we can see that his body type is totally different. We can see that his shape is totally different, and his body composition is going to be different. Now, he's probably not losing sleep at night thinking, oh, do you know what? I wish my body composition was the same as Usain Bolt. Do you know what I mean? He's not going to be laid there thinking, oh, I wish I was absolutely ripped to death, and didn't have this little bit of body fat that I've got or whatever it might be. No, his body composition also lets him do what he needs to do, and for a time be the best in the world at it as well. So again, just doubling down on that idea that there is no right and wrong body type. Don't let anybody else, especially media and headlines, convince you that there is a certain way to or not to look. That is not the case at all. It just entirely depends on what you're going to be asking your body to do, and how you expect your body to perform, really. So that is definitely worth bearing in mind. So for Bradley Wiggins, again, if you've not come across him before, professional road and track racing cyclist, Tour de France winner in 2012, and just all around cardiovascular and muscular endurance beast. Really, especially when you do think about how far those guys travel across that event. So we can see he's got muscular endurance, a lot more than Usain Bolt will. Usain Bolt needs to do whatever he needs to do for 10 seconds. Tour de France is spread out across different even events. It's a multiple day event, really. So yeah, even on a daily basis, they're cycling for what hours, really. A matter of hours. So they do need to have better muscular endurance, better cardiovascular endurance as well. Get the oxygen where it needs to be. Balance as well, in terms of not coming off your bike when you're navigating corners and stuff like that. We're thinking about balance, power for pushing through the pedals, be it on maybe uphill climbs and stuff like that, where we really need to work a little bit harder. Yeah, like you're really relying on that power, and of course the harder you can push each pedal, that translates to speed really on a bike. So the more power you've got, potentially the faster you're going to go, as long as your cardiovascular and muscular endurance can keep up with that. And then, like I say, we just mentioned his body composition is very sort of unique to what he needs it to be for his sport. In terms of body fat and how much muscle he's sort of showing, you would argue you've seen guys in better shape in the local gym. So again, it depends on what fitness means to you. So yeah, this guy would probably run and outlast circles around most people that I've ever met in my life. Really, even now probably. But at the same time, you'd be easy to fall into the habit of looking at somebody with a more muscular build, a more sort of stereotypical strongman build, and say, okay, he's probably fit, as opposed to Bradley Wiggins, who might not be. Do you know what I mean? So again, there's not a particular right and wrong way to be. It just depends on what you're asking your body to do. So, okay, buddy. So I've got one more example lined up for us. So if we can go next slide. I tried to pick one that was a little bit more outside the box. It might not be anybody that you've heard of, but it gives us a bit of a different idea of almost like a different type of sport. So we've got Michelle Kwan, she's a 5-time figure skating world champion, 2-time Olympic medalist. And in terms of course, flexibility, balance, and stuff like that, at a time, one of the best in the world in relation to some of those aspects. So she needs to be a lot more flexible than Usain Bolt, who just needs to pretty much do that till he's finished, or Bradley Wiggins, who just needs to pedal till he's finished. There was a lot more flexibility used to get into some of the shapes that they do. Agility, we've got quick sort of direction changes. Again, somebody like Usain Bolt runs in one direction. He doesn't need to be agile. He doesn't need to quickly change direction. No. Whereas someone like a figure skater, potentially a dancer, something like that, a gymnast would need to be a lot more agile. Balance goes a long way. I don't know if you've ever been on ice skates, mate, but or you guys at home, but you know what? You soon realize how hard it is when you do get going. The balance,
it's not easy.
Even to stay on your feet. Never mind some of the stuff that these athletes are able to do. Some of the best in the world. It's absolutely crazy, and it is like it's absolutely balance off the scale, really. It's
like not like quite a lot as well if you fall on ice. It's a pretty unforgiving surface.
I guess the idea is to fall as little as possible.
Sure.
Just total damage mitigation, really. But at the same time, you would look at how easy would it be to look at Arnold Schwarzenegger getting on stage, put him alongside Michelle Kwan on her performance day, and say, why, who's fitter? How many people would say Arnie? Just because of how he looks, just because of the visual behind it,
True.
Whereas again, if one of them had to do an endurance sport, or if you put them in a race against each other, my money's going to be on somebody like Michelle Kwan,
Sure.
who's carrying less muscle.
No, absolutely.
So again, different people that we look at and think of them as fit can be for totally different reasons.
Yeah.
Again, her body type is very, very finely tuned to what she needs her body to do and how she needs it to perform. She probably needs a little bit more muscular endurance than somebody like Usain Bolt. Potentially not as much as somebody like Bradley Wiggins, who's going a lot further, of course. But of course, she needs the cardiovascular fitness there as well to get the oxygen around the body, because it is quite a cardiovascularly demanding sport. Figure skating, ice skating, and even, like I said, dancing, gymnastics, and that sort of thing, really is quite demanding in those areas as well. So we can see there that just looking at 3 different athletes, we've got 3 totally different builds, 3 different almost body types.
Yeah.
And strengths and probably arguably weaknesses, if we took a little bit of time to look into what their weaknesses might be. Their strengths and weaknesses are all over the place and just in totally different areas depending on what that person is trying to be good at, So again, hopefully we're opening our eyes a little bit now to, okay, like if I want to just lose a little bit of body fat, do I need to be going to the gym and training till failure every single time?
Yeah.
And aching for 3 days to the point that it puts me off. Like, yeah, you might ache a little bit, but at the same time, like, just try and be as focused as you can in what it is that you're doing, and training. And I say, hopefully you'll have a better idea of that by the time we leave today's session. Okay, buddy. So if you don't mind just rolling on to that next slide, please. So can we think of any more examples of athletes that need specific components of fitness? So muscular strength, of course, you would say somebody like a strongman, powerlifter, something like that needs a lot of muscular strength. If we can maybe try and take a little bit of a step back and try and apply it to Joe Public as well, who might benefit from muscular strength training, maybe someone who works on a construction site, who's totally lifting a load of concrete around every day, a load of bricks around every day. They might need to work on muscular strength a lot more than they need to work on their agility, so getting that person or for that person to be training with weights and barbells and stuff like that is going to be a lot more beneficial than getting them to do shuttle runs where they're touching cones and stuff like that. There might be a place for that in their fitness, and there might come a time where you need to work on that aspect, but muscular strength would probably be my go-to for someone who's training from that sort of field. Flexibility, of course, we've mentioned dancers, we've mentioned gymnasts, where again we might just have somebody who is who would just like to be able to get themselves dressed a little bit easier, move a little bit better day to day, not feel like your back's going to go when you're swinging your legs out the car, that sort of thing. Flexibility can go a long way. You don't have to necessarily be an athlete, but when it comes to athletes, of course, we've got flexibility is a really big one for certain sports and certain areas, depending where we're looking. Balance would probably go hand in hand with a lot of them as well, be it your gymnastics, be it your dancing. Balance on, of course, the Olympic rings is something that we've is of course something that's going to be quite helpful, because of course we've got our dynamic balance as well. So you've got static balance, which is like if you were to do a handstand and you're just staying in one place. And you've got your dynamic balance, which is through a movement, which might be staying balanced through a cartwheel. So again, when we're thinking floor work, Olympic divers, there's the amount of balance and control that goes into some of the flips and twists and turns that they do is absolutely insane. And balance isn't something that gets enough credit in those sort of sports, I don't think.
Skateboarding. You think about
skateboarding, yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah.
A lot of balance on that.
I always. Yeah, definitely. I always like the idea of being a skater, and just never had the balance to do it. I never had the balance to do it. I remember once, I laid down on one on my stomach and went to like push myself with my hands, but had my fingers facing inwards. So I pulled myself forward and just rolled over. I just rolled all 4 wheels over my fingers.
Dude,
I was like, okay, that's me.
I lost a fingernail doing that,
Doing the same thing?
Yeah, fingernails obviously grow back, but like basically, I had 2 of my friends on the back of the board. We were kids, obviously. We tried to go on with like 3 people, and I rolled forward on the board, and with the pressure and the weight of two of my friends as well, it went over the top of my finger, and my nail just came off, and it was like bleeding. I was like screaming. It was really, really painful, and yeah, I just totally lost one nail, and it was really weird. Because
Yeah, well, I
to
never
watch a
knew
nail
that.
grow back's surreal, because it's something that
I
doesn't
bet.
happen every day.
I bet. Yeah,
But
yeah,
like
yeah,
your full nail
yeah,
to grow
yeah, yeah.
back. But yeah, man,
You
like
feel like a reptile regrowing a limb or
it
something like
really did. It was
that.
surreal to watch. But
Yeah,
yeah, man, it was pretty rough. It hurt a lot, and I just
yeah,
never
yeah.
had balanced it all. I mean,
No,
I've got
no.
really bad fine motor skills, so anything like that's never been good. It's always been something I wanted to do as well, but I've just never been able to. But
Yeah,
yeah, the level of balance you
yeah,
need, because the
yeah.
way you've got to contort your body. If you're doing a flip, you've got to stay on the
Of
ball.
course.
If you're grinding,
Hmm.
you've got to kind of keep your balance to be able to go across the rail. So it's like the level of balance is unreal.
Yeah, definitely. So there you go, guys. Let that be a word of warning to you. If you haven't got the balance to stand on a skateboard, don't lie down. Don't lie down on it, because you'll either run your fingers over or lose a fingernail. Yeah, 100% of Media Savvy staff on this call have hurt themselves lying down on a skateboard. So
That's
I
it.
would say be careful.
Exactly.
Definitely. Okay then. So speed. Besides the obvious where you've got runners and races and stuff like that, you could look at maybe certain sports where there's only one ball,
Hmm.
where you've got to rush to get to a ball, and potentially getting to the ball first gives you an advantage. Again, be it a rebound in basketball, be it the chance to counter attack the other team and get out on a fast break. Again, be it football, be it basketball, speed can be really helpful with that. When we think of speed as in, so if you were to think of speed as in like the 1 inch punch,
Yeah.
that would be more power.
Yeah.
That would be more explosive power. Speed in the sense that we're using it is more getting across distance and stuff like that. So again, stuff like we say, being the first to respond to a ball or
Yeah.
something like that. Circuit training. Then we've got coordination, which again we sort of mentioned earlier on. Anything really. I don't know whether we're going to be generous and class darts as a sport. It's definitely a pastime, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
definitely a pastime that needs a lot of coordination. But you would think, like, do you know the one that always got me with coordination? And I consider myself to be slightly coordinated, being able to play the drums and the guitar a little bit and stuff like that. But the one that used to get me was the triple jump, the hop
Oh
and the
yeah.
skip and the jump and the
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
trying to put it all together without taking extra steps and stuff. How you do that without getting your feet in a tangle and you actually optimize and maximize how far it is you can jump. I just never got my head around at school. I just
No,
really
it's
didn't.
crazy,
But
man.
you think, yeah, anything like a javelin throw, anything that you've got to release at a certain point takes a little bit of coordination as well. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
javelin, discus, shot put, all of that sort of thing takes a little
Archery.
bit of coordination. And yeah, I guess even boxing, combat sports where you've maybe got a duck and
Oh,
then
of
counter
course. Yeah.
attack quickly, or you know, just even judge where how far away that person is and to get the power on your punch right. You know, that's
100%. Yeah.
coordination. Yeah,
Yeah.
or making sure that as you move backwards, your feet come with you, and you take that step backwards rather than just being backwards and off balance and being a little bit of
No. Yeah.
like
Exactly.
a sick duck. Oh, sorry, guys. But yeah, combat sports is something that I know you love your combat sports,
Oh yeah.
buddy, as
Big
well,
time.
and you know, coordination really does go a long way in
Oh
not
yeah.
getting punched in the side of the head.
Huge, man.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so where we at? So we've done agility. Of course, we mentioned obviously like your dancers again, your gymnasts, that sort of thing. Your agility is going to be really important. Cardiovascular endurance is just anybody who is going to be working for a long amount of time. You know, we've mentioned before how, of course, footballers when they're on the pitch,
Yeah.
they're on the pitch for good. If they come off, they get substituted off. They don't get to go back on. So their cardiovascular endurance needs to be better to make sure that they can make it to 70, 80, 90
Yeah, I
minutes.
mean, if they're in
Basket-
second round of extra time, you see people pull up, and I mean,
yeah.
it is literally like on FIFA where, like, people are like, the hamstring goes
yeah.
and they can't get the ball. You see that
Yeah.
happen? You saw that happen in the World Cup, when people go, it's like, yeah, that's it. If
Oh,
you,
you do start to cramp up and get injuries and pulling
yeah,
up
yeah,
limb and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. definitely. As opposed to a sport like basketball where you can do 2 minutes on the court and then come off and grab a breather
Yeah.
and then go back on and maybe play half a quarter and then come back off. So I don't know if I would tell any professional basketball players my opinion on it, but I would guess that footballers and sports where you don't get as much of a break, the cardiovascular endurance is probably going to be a little bit better, you know, whereas basketballers, they might need to work on, again, power and speed to maximize the time that they are on the court, rather than the cardiovascular endurance, given that they might, depending on the tactics, they might be getting a rest every couple of minutes. Reaction time, we mentioned earlier on, be it a goalie or a defender reacting to a deflection or something like that. You know, it could be, again, thinking about it from a combat sport point of view, it could be dodging, ducking your opponent's sort of strikes and stuff like that. So reaction time can go a long way in making sure that you're not getting hit by anything that you could have dodged. For example, you know, muscular endurance, we mentioned earlier on that although somebody like a CrossFit athlete or someone who's doing sort of like an endurance event, you know, like a triathlon, you know, running, cycling, swimming, you're going to need a lot of muscular endurance to do that. You know, you're only going to get as far as your muscles will let you go, you know. But then again, we've got people like cyclists, you know, who their muscles do need to last for a long time. And again, you know, maybe it's again coming back to actual one-on-one combat sports. You've seen you'll have seen it more than I have, you know, but even I've seen guys get so tired from a muscular point of view, they just can't move their feet anymore. They just can't move their feet and they can't throw punches, and you're knackered then. You really are sitting duck.
I think when you're fighting a wrestler as well, if there's like a, you know, you see when guys go against wrestlers, I think muscle endurance is a big one, because they need to keep getting to the feet. You need to stop them from you know, changing positions, and you know, your muscle endurance to be able to kind of hold off their strength, stop yourself from getting taken down. And you see once the muscle endurance goes, you know, in the like 4th or 5th round or something, that they just capitulate, they just let them take them down and then dominate them. That's, you know, so it's like the muscle endurance needs to be there to be able to hold that off. And also with submission attempts as well, you know, the muscle endurance can go up if you do too many submission attempts, you can burn yourself out, and then your muscle endurance is gone. They go into the next round. Well, that's why, you know, that changes a fight a lot of the time. Like if you look at Dustin Poirier versus Khabib, he went in for a guillotine, put all of his energy into it, didn't get the tap, and he burned his arms out. You know, his arms are going to be like jelly, and then Khabib just dominated him, because it's an interesting thing in fighting where they think like they're going to go for a submission, and if you fully commit to it, you could be in a bit of trouble, because you know you're going to build up all your muscles with lactic acid, and it's going to really affect your endurance going into the next round.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in terms of submissions and stuff like that, but of course, yeah, your muscular endurance would be massive better.
Yeah.
That is where, like, you'd be better off making sure that you're training like 100 reps to failure and stuff like that on your biceps, rather than go to put somebody in a sleeper and all you've done is big power lifts.
Yeah, exactly.
Your bicep burns out. Yeah, that's a really good point, mate. Yeah. Totally different aspect of fitness than what you would normally associate with that, I think, as well. Definitely. Right, mate. Right. So let's blast on then. So if we can go next slide then, please, buddy. So we can see all of those athletes that we've looked at this morning have been, they've competed at the top of their sports in their field, and usually come out on top, and they've often won. So each of them are people that we would call fit. Yeah, we can see they're fit in totally different ways just by looking at them, depending on what their lifestyles, goals, and body type is. So, like I've sort of mentioned this morning, we've pointed out body composition a couple of times that helps these athletes be at the top of their game. But again, they all have different body compositions, and we're going to just look at another couple of examples in a second, as we're looking at different body types. And again, we can say that they're all built differently. They've all got very specific body types, but nobody could argue that they weren't the best in the world or what they do at some point. So you know what, again, just really to drive home that point, there's no ideal body composition. You know what, if 10% body fat worked for everybody would just be trying to get to that point, and that's just not how it works. You know, it depends who you are. So often body types are going to play a big role in what types of fitness are going to come most naturally to ourselves. I sort of mentioned that earlier on, and if we can find something that feels more manageable. I don't like to use the word enjoyable, because you don't necessarily have to feel as though that you are really good at something, or you don't even have to feel as though you go along and enjoy it. That's not what everybody looks for in their exercise and their training. Like, some of it is supposed to be hard, you know, and some of it is meant to challenge you. But at the same time, if you can find something that feels a little bit more natural and something that you feel like you're actually going to stick at a little bit longer, that is where we can start to get real sustainable fitness in your daily routines, and that is where you're gonna see your body changes as a result of that. You know, so just think of your body as a manifestation of your day-to-day habits, and if you change your habits, your body will change. If you change your habits back, your body will change right back. You know, that is the way I think about it. And yeah, just think about your physique is just a byproduct of the way that you live your life, really. That's the way I think about it anyway. Yeah. Right, buddy. So if you don't mind going next slide, then please, mate. We'll get our first look at these different body types, and we've mentioned them a couple of times this morning. So we've got our endomorph, our mesomorph, and our ectomorph. So we can see very, very similar sort of different body types. We've got the more sort of rounded, barrel-shaped is the endomorph. Maybe typically shorter sort of limbs. We've got our mesomorph in the middle, who looks more like probably your average sort of body. That's more like a more athletic sort of build. They naturally build muscle a little bit easier. They burn fat a little bit easier, and they more just have that general sort of athletic sort of build. And then we've got our ectomorphs on the right-hand side, which are generally sort of predisposed to be skinny throughout their whole lives, really. Daniel mentioned earlier on about the old metabolism slowing down a little bit, and that will happen. But especially limbs will probably always be quite skinny, and they're what we would call a hard gainer. You know, they find it hard to put muscle on, even when they're training specifically to do so. You know, and that's where I found myself. You know, the ectomorph of the scale. So it's probably worth noting that not many people are strictly one or the other. A lot of people are a blend of usually two of them. Not an even blend, but it's still a blend. So I've always found myself to be somewhere between ectomorph and mesomorph. I can burn fat really, really easily if I want to. But yeah, I do have a hard time gaining muscle no matter what I'm doing in terms of training, protein, eating, sleeping, all of that sort of thing as well. So again, now we can start to have a little bit of a thing and maybe start to identify your own body type in there, or where you feel you might fall within those body types. Just while me and Daniel move on to the next slide, and we're going to have a look at an endomorph in action. And the example that we've got is Thor, who we mentioned earlier on. The mountain from Game of Thrones. He's what, about 7 foot tall?
Yeah.
He's not far off 7 foot
lad.
tall, definitely. Yeah, he's a big guy. He's a big guy. It's not until you see him with a picture of like a regular can or like a regular beer or a regular mug in his hand that you realize just how big this guy is.
Yeah, he's a beast, man.
Often, so endomorphs are often going to be what we would call pear-shaped, with a waist that is bigger than the chest normally. You know, especially if you remove sort of like the lats and take the lats and the shoulders out of the equation, they normally have quite a bigger waist in relation to the rest of their body. They tend to have short arms and legs. So at 7 foot tall, I don't think I could argue that he's got short arms and legs at all. But at the same time, for his height and for the rest of his bulk, his arms and legs are probably quite short. Yeah. And we can see that the upper part of the limbs are normally larger than the lower part. So we can see that from looking at his legs, from his hip socket down to his knee is a bigger distance than from the bottom of his knee down to the top of his ankle. Yeah. So the top portion of his limbs are a little bit longer. Now, I wouldn't worry yourselves too much about over remembering that. But when you start to get down to real specifics, that can actually determine what lifts you might get them to do. So, for example, he is probably better suited to squats
Mm-hmm.
because of that extra length on the femur, like the upper leg bone, whereas an ectomorph with longer lower limbs, lower portions of the limbs usually do better with deadlifts. So yeah, again, don't worry too much about that. That's more just like a little more just like a little fun fact for the day that can actually inform because it's physics really, isn't it? At the end of the day, when you think about lever lengths and axis and pivot points and stuff like that, that's all the human body's doing. It's just biophysics really.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, don't worry too much about his arms and legs being short because they're definitely not. But in relation to the rest of his body, they would be. Endomorphs, for all they are fit and strong and active, they actually tend to store fat quite easily.
Yeah.
And this is where I mentioned earlier on, relating back to that point that Daniel had mentioned. Um, if he was to drop some body fat and have a better body composition and be lower body fat, he would actually lose strength. He wouldn't be as good at what he does as he is. So again, his body composition is perfect for what he needs it to do. You know, um, bodybuilders and powerlifters, sorry, are usually trying to put more size on.
Yeah.
You know, the old like 8,000, 12,000 calories a day, just trying to build because the idea of I've got more mass. The more mass I've got, the more mass I can move. You know, really, and that kind of thing. And so if muscular strength was just all that was important, you would say, yeah, they're really fit. But I would quite fancy my chances of going and running a mile faster than him, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so again, totally different depending on what our goals are, you know. And like I sort of mentioned earlier on, they easily gain muscle mass. So especially if they're training, you know, and they're following a good training program. So can we name any more famous endomorphs? Of course, we've got other powerlifters. We've got your Eddie Hall, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would always say I can't think of any specifically, but again, thinking about sports that lend themselves quite well. Of course, we've got our sumo wrestling,
Yeah.
shot putting, anything that you need to move a lot of mass. Of course, powerlifting and all of that sort of thing as well. Endomorphs tend to gravitate towards those sports because they're more naturally able. So again, thinking about it as
You got
we are.
defensive linebackers in American football.
Yes, of course. Yeah. That's a really good point. There is no depending on what sport it is that you're doing, different body types might actually work better. You know, a center in basketball,
Yeah.
you know, is probably the best place for an endomorph. They maybe don't need to get up and down the court quite as quick. They need to be in the center, trying to push through other defenders, getting dunks, getting in there for rebounds and stuff like that. Like, if you were to take if you were to take an ectomorph who's really naturally quite skinny, think of somebody like Mo Farah, and put them in a center position against somebody like Shaq, you know, they're going to get absolutely obliterated.
True.
Whereas, you know, depending on if they were doing a different role in that sport, you know, maybe they're a winger in football, or maybe they're a point guard in basketball. That's where you tend to get your skinnier, more sort of wiry, usually like smaller players as well, shorter players. So yeah, it's not even specific sports. Even it's potentially even specific sports with specific roles within different sports.
Yeah.
That's a really good point worth mentioning, buddy. You know, I have seen centre forwards, the likes of, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, Wayne Rooney, in terms of his body shape and his build, really.
What's
Do
that?
you know what I mean? He was never ripped to death. He was always quite stocky, really, and a little bit rounder.
What's that guy called again?
Paul Gascoigne.
The
Akinfenwa or something like that.
Akinfenwa,
Yeah.
mate. He's the guy
Yeah.
Akinfenwa. He does not
But
look like your
what do you
average
mean?
centre forward.
No, definitely not. He looks like a bodybuilder. He looks like a bouncer, doesn't he? Really?
Yeah, he
Like,
does, man.
He really does, and he's a centre forward, isn't he? Or he was a centre forward. I don't even know if he's still playing.
Yeah. No.
But do you know what? Like, there is no way that he would cope as a centre midfielder.
No.
The amount he'd have to get up and down the pitch, you know.
But,
I think that somebody like Paul Gascoigne, who wasn't the fittest, and was a little bit rounder and liked the kebab and a bevy or two, the way that the game's evolved, I don't think he would do as well in centre midfield these days. Not to say there wouldn't be a role for him,
Yeah.
But when a lot of midfielders these days are box to box and up and down the pitch,
Yeah.
Paul Gascoigne just didn't have the fitness to do it.
No, you're right, mate. Yeah.
No, definitely not. Right, buddy, I've just noticed the time there, so we'll blast on to the next slide. So we've got ectomorphs next. So somebody who's naturally considered thin, genetically predisposed to have this body type, and are often typically skinny their whole lives, tend to have an extremely fast metabolism, and they usually have difficulty building muscle mass. That's pretty much everything I've mentioned about myself this morning. So can we think of any other famous ectomorphs? So, of course, we've got Mo Farah on there as an example. You could even use somebody like Bruce Lee.
Yeah, Bruce Lee, definite ectomorph. Yeah, 100%.
Ectomorph, really, really powerful, really, really quick, but really, really sort of slim, agile, nimble, coordinated. At the same time, undoubtedly an ectomorph.
Yeah, definitely.
Jockeys tend to be ectomorph because the smaller you are, the less weight the horse is carrying, really.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they are.
So that sort of thing. There are sports out there where ectomorphs can thrive.
Yeah.
Really,
Look at Manny Pacquiao. He's the definite ectomorph.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Depending on different weights and different divisions within these combat sports as well. Yeah, different sort like you say. You've got lighter divisions that have got ectomorphs that are top of the division, really.
Yeah.
So there is even endurance sports as well, like I mentioned earlier on.
Yeah.
You'll notice that a lot of triathletes or anything beyond triathlons, really, you'll see a lot of ectomorphs, because if you say have to cycle a distance and then run a distance and then swim a distance, the less weight you're carrying across that distance, the better time you're probably gonna have.
Yeah,
really,
they're like different breed of people. Those ultramarathon runners, like it's
definitely else. Like, well, if you ever seen that guy who did the London Marathon carrying the fridge, he didn't win. I definitely didn't win. The more weight you carry,
exactly,
the harder time you're gonna have.
Interestingly, as well, though, I don't know if that's the case now or it's changed, but obviously, generally, like if you look at the Olympics, men usually hold like the best records, but the latest one of the top ultramarathon competitions was it's unisex and a woman one, which is actually pretty interesting.
Really?
I think, and that's actually like, it just goes to show, like, for those endurance thing, I think women can sometimes are a little bit better than men.
Definitely. Yeah, and I do think that world records and stuff like that, and acknowledgement and praise should be unisex. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If a woman was to come up in the next Olympics and run faster than Usain Bolt, like she's the fastest person in the world. Like, she hasn't broken the women's gold, the record. She hasn't broken the women's record. She's broken the world record, and that should be her record. She shouldn't just be the fastest woman in the world. And I'm not entirely sure how they do classify it, to be honest, but I imagine certainly in the name of equality and stuff like that as well, that these records should be held in equal regard and should be held alongside each other.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if I could, it's I mean, no, I think you're right, dude. I just think that it's like ultra marathons in particular. It's like, that's something like, it's like a double marathon sometimes, even more than that. They're like, so it's like, it's a certain level of type of fitness that I can't even imagine. The amount of mental strength you must have as well to be able to do something like that, like to be able to run for days on minimal sleep. It's like, wow, it's crazy.
Oh, definitely. You want an ice bath after you've done one or two of them, that's for sure.
Mel's done an ultra marathon before.
Has she?
Yeah, she's done it. It was ultra marathon. I can't remember. I don't want to paraphrase and say how long it was, but it was an insane amount, and it's I mean, you can obviously imagine Mel, though, right? Like, she's
The only person I know with a baby buggy that lets you run with it, like, and one that's specifically designed for running with. That's our Mel.
She's
she's a machine.
Totally, yeah. She really is. But
you're right. Where were we? So right, buddy, if we can blast on to the next slide, then please, mate, we'll get these wrapped up, and there we go, and then we'll give the guys a little look at the fitness video we're going to do today. So mesomorphs, to finish up, probably one of the most famous examples in the world. Arnold Schwarzenegger. If he's not a guy that you've ever heard of, I've probably just got a question how at this point.
Yeah.
You know, the governor. Mesomorphs. So average build with the muscle definition and strength of an athlete. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, normally quite naturally as well, without a lot of effort put into that. As sickening as that can be. Building muscle easily and are generally more muscular than endomorphs or ectomorphs. Well, as I was saying, they build muscle easily and they drop fat really easily as well. They've got fast metabolism, helps people of this body type lose fat and maintain weight when following a healthy diet and exercise program. Where mesomorphs slip up, it tends to be if they're not training and not eating well. They will drop muscle relatively quick, but they will gain fat quite quick as well. You know, it's not just like Arnie could eat whatever he wanted and he would just stay like this year round again. You know, this was if you've ever seen Pump and Iron, it's an amazing documentary. It really is. If that kind of thing interests you at all, and you see what prep and what dedication goes into it, it really is. It's long overdue since I watched it again. Actually, really insightful when you look into just the preparation that goes into just on that day when I get up on stage in my speedos, I want to look my best, pretty much like. And the commitment that goes into it and the thought process that goes into it. So without that dedication and without that focus, even mesomorphs do find it pretty easy to gain a little bit of body fat as well. You know, other famous mesos, I would probably think of probably Akinfenwa. Now you mentioned that centre forward, he played for like Bournemouth or something like that, I think. I would say probably somebody like a LeBron James.
I think Anthony Joshua, a great one.
Anthony Joshua, he would be a good one. Anthony Joshua for sure. Yeah, definitely. That's a really good one there. So mesos tend to be a little bit more specific in whatever it is that they're doing. You know, you do find that a lot of gymnasts end up being some form of meso because you need the muscle there. If you see them doing like the old what is it, the pommel horse or whatever they call it, where they're on the beam and they balance their weight on their hands and they're swinging their legs around and doing all of that sort of thing, like the muscle that you need for that is just absolutely insane. You look at the Olympic rings when they're getting up and doing muscle ups and stuff like that, and like some of the holds and the positions that they get into on that, like you need the muscle for it. Definitely. So mesomorphs can very easily find themselves doing stuff like even gymnastics, a lot of male dance partners that you see actually, like professional dancers are quite sort of edge towards meso. They're probably somewhere between ecto and meso, but
I think
hopefully that'll give you a bit of go on, but sorry.
The Rock's an amazing one. I mean, there's that picture obviously of the Rock when he's like 15 and he's like in his room and it's like he's absolutely huge. It's like
he's bigger than I am at 29, and I'm sure he's also sat there with a better mustache as well.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
what's going on there? I think he is as well, actually. So
I think he's like 15-year-old sat there with his biceps and his mustache. But like he got his genetics from his dad, didn't he? Dwayne Johnson's an absolutely amazing one. If you think about the new Jumanji films, you've got Kevin Hart who's ectomorph, you've got Jack Black the endomorph, and you've got The Rock, you've got the Dwayne Johnson. So there you go. They've ticked all the boxes there with them new ones.
Definitely.
So hopefully that just gives you a bit of an idea of what these different body types are more naturally sort of built towards. And I guess the point that I do want to make before we finish up is, again, you know, they are more naturally inclined to these sorts of sports. There is nothing telling Arnold Schwarzenegger that if he wants to go and run 100 meters, like who's going to stop him? Really, there's no reason not to. But that won't help him be the best in the world at what he was trying to do, really. So their natural gifts and their natural talents have undoubtedly helped them be the best in the world, but they have had to double down and really focus on their strengths and really develop their strengths to go on to be the best. If you just want to be a little bit more active and a little bit more fit, you don't have to just do things that you're more naturally gifted towards. You know, That's what I'm saying, like earlier on, like if you want to go and do whatever, step aerobics class, if you want to start walking, you might want to take up rugby on a weekend or whatever it is that you want to do. Chances are you're not trying to be the best in the world at it.
No.
You know, so you aren't just limited to your natural strengths, but those natural strengths are definitely something to consider when you're trying to find a form of exercise that you're gonna sustain and be able to stick at, because of course that's where the real lasting results come from. So yeah, don't let your body type limit or get into your mind and feel like it limits what you can and can't do, but it is just something to think about, that you know your body type will give you natural strengths and weaknesses, that's for sure. Right, buddy, so if we can go next slide then, please, mate. We're getting there, guys, we're getting there. So by now we can see that to be fit means something totally different to everybody, and there's no right or wrong way to go about it, depending on what your goals are. But we can see how different components of fitness are important in many ways, depending on your goals and what your lifestyle is. Although many people do not fall into one specific body type, like we've mentioned, can be a mix. Being able to recognize our own body types, strengths, and weaknesses can help us decide what fitness means to us as individuals and which of these aspects we'd like to maintain and hopefully work and improve on. So this can also highlight which physical activities we might be more naturally suited to, helping us get active again in ways that feel more natural. Okay, but again, just to reaffirm, there is definitely nothing that you can't do if you really want to and you set your mind to it. 100%. Okay, guys, so let's put this into practice then. So grab yourself a pen and paper, and we're going to actually try and apply this to yourself, because you know what? It's all well and good to know why Arnold Schwarzenegger is the best in the world at what he does. It's something totally different to be able to extract that information and apply it to your own lives and your own exercise routines. So we're going to think about, and we're going to have a bit of a think on these questions. What components of fitness are important to you? Which components of fitness are important to your goals and the lifestyle that you want to lead? And what is your body type? Yeah. From there, we can maybe start to identify what your strengths and your weaknesses are. And then once we've got that, we can think about what approaches to fitness completely your strengths and the components of fitness that are actually important to you. Yeah. So how can we train to pretty much honor those top 5 bullet points, really, because that's what we're trying to do. If you're training in a way that doesn't at least acknowledge those top 5 bullet points, you're sort of wasting time and energy, I would argue. You know, or you're very, very blindly spending time and energy without much focus, and you might actually be spending more than you actually need, which is, like I say, it's a little bit of a travesty when you consider we only get 24 hours in the day. If you could save yourself some time, why not, you know? Okay, buddy, so we've got one more slide to do, and that is an activity that I just want to work with you guys in the chat as well. So Wib said a minute ago, they said the endomorph picture was a mirror image of him. Yeah, you've been doing some powerlifting, buddy. I wasn't sure if it was the mountain from Game of Thrones or if it was you, Wib. I wasn't sure. So thank you for confirming that, cheers, buddy. Right, guys, so group activity that we're going to do and bounce some ideas around just before we wrap up. So group activity, Joanna needs our help. So Joanna wants to get active but doesn't know where to start. She's come to us as a group and said, help me out, guys, what's going on? So she's got good coordination, she's got poor flexibility, she feels that she's not very strong, she's got great agility, and she's got good cardiovascular fitness. Yeah. She feels, and we've identified that she is a mix between endomorph and mesomorph. And even then, just remember our body types don't limit what we can and can't do. They just guide us towards what may come more naturally. So we've got Joanna in front of us. What can we suggest to her, do we think, as ways that she could get fit and a little bit more active, play into her strengths, and not necessarily highlighting any weaknesses, especially not at first, because nobody wants to turn up and try something and think, do you know what, I can't do this. That certainly doesn't breed confidence and consistency, that's for sure.
No.
So what could we recommend to her, do we think? I'm sure Wib's got a couple of ideas. Where are we at? So my first piece of advice would probably be based on the fact that she's got good coordination, she's got good sort of movement patterns, she's not very strong, and she doesn't have great flexibility, but she's got good agility, good cardiovascular fitness. I would maybe suggest some swimming. I would
Yeah.
say, have you thought about trying some swimming? It's going to take some of any extra weight off your bones, because the water's gonna bear that weight, and your cardiovascular fitness is good. So as you're swimming, you're probably going to be developing your muscular endurance a little bit as
Yeah.
well, because your muscles are going to tire out before your cardiovascular fitness gives in. So yeah, you can get a little bit of resistance through pretty much all those muscles. Let's have a think. What else could she do? Of course, she could do anything like walking, running. There's absolutely nothing limiting those things and saying that she couldn't go and do those things. Um, how about any racket sport?
Yeah.
We could do any racket sports really. We could. She's saying she's got she's got good coordination. She's got good agility. She's got good cardiovascular fitness. She's built for something like tennis or squash or badminton or something like that. You know, if you've got coordination enough to hit the ball back, you're going to beat me, because I don't. Do you know what I mean? Like that was always the hardest bit of tennis and squash for me. Actually hitting the ball with the racket, rather than go to put absolutely everything into it and miss it all together. But that could be something we could suggest for Joanna to go and do. You know, you got anything that you want to add there, buddy? I think I've just.
I think that's pretty much it, man. I think you know that would you nailed on the head. I think racket sports would be pretty good. I think, yeah.
Yeah, racket sports could be pretty good. At the same time, there was absolutely nothing saying that she couldn't go and pick up a little bit of resistance training as well. Why can't she start doing a little bit of kettlebell swings or overhead press or whatever it might be, and actually starting to. She says that she feels she isn't very strong. So is that an area that we can look to develop? I wouldn't necessarily make that all of her training, because she feels like she's not very strong, and I say, well, just go and lift weights. It sort of really shines the light on something that she feels that she's not very good at. But
Yeah.
we could somehow sneakily try and bring a little bit of strength work in there and start to identify that weakness and round out her skill set as well, and make sure that she's got like a good all-round fitness as well. So that is something that we could think about as well. So
Yeah.
just from a handful of bits of information that she's given us, we could say, well, I'm not surprised that this hasn't worked or that hasn't worked. Why don't you go and try this instead?
Like netball would be good by the sound of it. You don't move too much in netball, but you can you agility for it, and you need coordination. So
yeah, really good. A lot of sort of competitive sports, stuff like that. Yeah, I think she'd be sort of naturally able to do with the skill set that she's given us. So that's really good, guys. Being able to take what we've looked at today and pull it out and apply it to your own life is of course the whole point that we look at the stuff that we look at. Because do you know what, like I say, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's got it together, man. He knows what he's doing. It's us that are in a position now where, again, we're going to have activities and facilities available to us in the next couple of months that we haven't had access to for nearly 18 months now.
Wow, yeah.
We're going to have a lot more option to pick from, and now's a really good time for a little bit of self-reflection and to get a little bit of an idea of what your fitness plan is going to look like, because you've potentially either had to modify it and been limited in what you can do, or, I've spoke to certain people that fitness hasn't even been a priority for the last year. It's about keeping head above water, looking after family and friends, maintaining other commitments, and of course that always needs to come first. So yeah, maybe you are just coming back to fitness now and starting to think about it now. But now's a really good time to start doing it, because you can get a real head start. And like I say, you get a bit of an idea which way you're going to be going. If you're not sure where to start, by all means do check out the fitness video for today's session, because it's chair-based session.
Yeah.
So all the exercises are done sat down. So you know what, you might be worried about your balance, you might be worried about, I need to get a breather every now and then. It doesn't matter, that the workout accounts for that. So by all means, give it a go. Let us know how you get on, and you'll get an idea then where you are fitness wise. Do you need exercises that were a little bit harder? Did you find the session quite difficult and you're just going to do that one another couple of times and wait till you get a little bit better at that? So like I say, now is as good a time as any to be having to think about that. So yeah, hopefully we're able to just start taking some of that stuff away, and hopefully it's got you thinking a little bit about your own fitness, maybe stuff that you've tried in the past to get fitter, and maybe now you're realizing why it hasn't worked or why you haven't stuck at it. Yeah, maybe we're getting that reflective headspace on, and especially as we do move into other courses, the level 1, the level 2, for those of you that are enrolled, we're going to be thinking about that even more as we do sort of go on and sort of just deepen our understanding as we go through. But other than that, guys, that'll do from me today. It's been absolutely awesome. If we can just, I've just noticed you've one step ahead of us, buddy. So on that last slide, I've just mentioned, if you don't mind just taking 30 seconds to fill in the survey for the session, we really appreciate it. Helps us fill in bits on this end on your behalf as well. And at the same time, your feedback's really important, where we like to know what we're doing well. And of course, as always, we want to know where we can be even better, and suit you guys even more. If you want to learn more about nutrition, taking care of your body, check out any upcoming courses. And of course, we're still doing the Monday drop-in sessions as well, which are Monday, 10 o'clock, where we talk about sort of health and well-being, fitness. We've talked quite a lot about self-care during lockdown. We look at nutrition, meal plans, different recipes, all of that sort of thing as well. So again, drop me an email. My email is in the it's in the chat as well if you do need it. But of course, I'll be emailing you every week with the links to sessions as well, so you should have that email anyway. Daniel's very kindly put the survey and the link to the fitness video in the chat as well as in the description, so you should be able to find those. Though no bother at all. Like I said, definitely give the workout a go. Let us know how you got on. And I think that'll about do us for today then, guys. Do you have anything that you want to add, Daniel?
I think that's pretty much everything, mate. Yeah, I think you summed it up well.
Spot on, buddy. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for jumping on, and thank you for your conversation this morning. Pleasure as always.
Yeah, buddy. No worries, mate.
You guys at home, as always, stay safe. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Thank you for watching back, and look after yourselves. Have a good week, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care, guys. I'll see you later on.